All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 6 of Shift Happens. Wow, what an interesting month it's been, huh? So we're going to go a little different direction today. I have some sessions lined out for how to deal with on both the buyer side and the seller side for both investors and realtors or both. How to deal with it, and I'm looking at it like, how do you deal with what you have in escrow, what you had in the pipeline coming into this, and what you can put in the pipeline with prospecting. So we'll kind of look at it from an investment and brokerage, and in the three stages of a deal. And I decided to. I just made I had an intuition told me that I should just kind of back off of that and do a little less teaching and a little more listening today. So what I want to do today is make this a human episode. I want to hear from you guys, and hopefully we don't have the microphone problems we've had. It seems like on your end, a lot of folks really have trouble getting their mic unmuted. But I'm gonna take a chance here, take a risk, and let's just have some of the calls I've been on, some mastermind calls, some of the most successful, strongest. People that I wouldn't expect to really be down right now. People are struggling. We're just people, and I don't think any of us are immune to it, including myself. And I've had to find ways to deal with things. Like I have not been at my house more than 2 weeks in the last 4 years, and I have not been off my property in 4.5 weeks. I stocked up. I don't need a whole lot, so I've been giving everything I can give. I'm on the phones from 7, 8 in the morning, usually till midnight. And I've had to find ways to, clear my mind and make sure that my cup was full. And I just think that there's probably people in this call that need that help too, that may need that help too. And maybe not. Maybe you guys are better off than the people I'm running with. But I wanted to make myself available. I've got a pretty broad skill set, and I've helped a lot of people through a lot of different situations in the past couple of weeks. But on this, it's just been real estate. And honestly, like, this is a people business, and we are people, and we have people problems. So that's what today is about. And we'll get back into real estate and training and strategies and tactics and all that later. And if you guys think this is boring and you have better things to do with your time, I understand. So what are we going to do today? We've gone through in session 1. We kind of looked at like what the housing looked like before going into this, and how we can set up for the corner, and get ready for what's coming. And then we kind of looked at what's happening in escrow. Luckily, I did call around today. I've checked around the country with different people who own escrow companies and lending companies. And, thankfully, most of the deals that were in escrow from 45 to 60 days ago are closing. We do obviously have some people backing away from the table and deals blowing up. But for the most part, what was in the pipeline is closing for most of you, I think. But if not, we want to hear about that. And then we covered kind of the what was happening behind the curtain in residential lending and what that might bring later in the month or later in the quarter for us. And then how you can use creative financing to help, put deals back together, get the market moving when it decides not to. And then we looked session 5 on Friday. We looked at all the benefits that are available to you personally and as a business owner. And I imagine we'll have some questions around that. There's a whole lot of uncertainty. There's a whole lot of bad information. Hopefully I wasn't contributing to that. I did my best to digest it with the limited communication we've had since this was passed down to us. So far, I don't know anyone who's actually gotten funds. I know people who have applied, and I know people who have talked to bankers. But for the most part, even the big banks and the community banks, they seem to be uncertain on a lot of things. They don't know what their underwriting conditions are. They don't know anything. All they know is they're taking applications and trying to do what they can. So if you're uncertain on that, even after Friday's session, just join the club. We all are. I've talked with attorneys, I've talked with bankers, I've talked with everyone, business owners. And so far, business owners are applying for everything. Bankers are encouraging that, and we're all waiting. So anyways, hopefully session 6 was helpful, and the handout that we gave you will help you digest that. I tried to do my best to kind of aggregate the most credible information I found into one sheet, so you can just click those links and learn at your own pace. And then eventually we'll get to operations and the buyer business, seller business strategies that we talked about. But today, I just want to know how I can help you. Like, what is it that you think that I might be able to help you with? I put a little list together just to get it started. So if anyone knows what day it is, that would be great. If anyone could tell us that, maybe share some good news for a change. I'm sure you've seen plenty of bad news. What is it specifically that we can help you with right now? Like, what part of your business, what part of your personal life, like where can you use the most help? And guys, this is, I think I said on the very first session that we did, anyone dragging anyone through the mud doesn't need to be here. And I've not seen a single comment and all the hours that we've done this. You guys have been incredible to each other and to me. No one's dragged me through the mud either. So don't be afraid to be vulnerable. I've been on mastermind calls with guys that, the guys that just 3 months ago were on stage, like is this icon of a mastermind, and now they're breaking down and just being honest with people, and that's getting them through. So if no one knows there's a problem, how are we going to support you? So what can we do over the next few weeks that's going to be most valuable for you? I mean, I've got another, I don't know, 2 to 6 hours of stuff that I can teach for sure. It's the environment's changing, but what is it that you think you need the most from an education standpoint, from a support standpoint? What are you most concerned about? What are you most excited about? Like, what's your plan for the rest of the year? I think it's there's a lot of conversations happening about all the bad news and all the things we should be worried about, and the end of real estate is upon us. And even if you don't participate today, if you've got something, if this isn't that hard for you, if you feel like this is going to be a great thing for your business, step up and share with the group. Everybody here can benefit from that. So I will jump over to our comments. We don't have any questions. Joyce asked, how can you get a copy of the handout from the last session? So Kat, you actually posted that in the Facebook group, correct?
Yeah, it's in the recap. I can email it to Joyce as well.
Okay. Joyce, Kat's going to email it to you. And nobody is in the queue. I guess nobody likes my idea, Kat. So we'll just sit here. I think it's Monday. I'll take number one. I'll share some. I'll start with some good news, guys. In calling around to, people who own title companies, including in Hawaii, where I used to live. My old market was Maui. Closings are still happening. Maui is definitely a jumbo loan market, and anyone who relies on financing might not be able to, but a lot of the market there is cash buyers. And in those demographics, when you're selling multi-million-dollar real estate, in most cases, as long as lines of credit don't freeze on business owners and they can access, equity and other assets, then those closings can move forward. The pipeline is slowing down. People are having trouble, when you are on an island 3,500 miles in the middle of nowhere and nobody can get there. It's obviously, a challenge, but the good news from around the country, my round of calls that I made this morning, is most title companies are e-recording. There's some interesting innovation happening. Like here in Roanoke, our title company, one of the employees just sits in her car all day. And people drive up and they're doing drive-by closings. She sits in her car, notarizes stuff, and like they're doing car hood closings. And then actually here, they are allowed in the courthouse. So people from title companies, attorneys' offices, they are allowing in to do actual recordings. But for the most part, most people have shifted to e-recordings, even here in some markets where I didn't expect it, or some courthouses, they've actually moved and they're doing e-recordings now. So that's a piece of really good news. The business that we put in the pipeline 30, 60, maybe as long as 90 days ago for some people, that income is coming to us. Now we've got to focus on what's coming up, like where our deal's coming from in the next quarter. Colette, let me see if I can, let me find you here and I'll unmute you. Colette, you're on the air.
Hi, can you hear me, Chad?
I can hear you well. How are you today?
I'm doing good. So I have a question because this came up yesterday from a personal representative or independent executor that called, and she is in the house that she sold to her ex-husband. And when he passed away, she has been named independent executor. She thought that the attorney, the probate attorney, was actually working with the lender in order to transfer the deed. And somehow they had a breakdown in communication. She received a letter from the lender that she either has to bring up she has to bring up the rear, or they're going to foreclose on the house. She lost her job recently due to COVID, and she's basically kind of stuck, and she needs to sell the house, but there is no equity in it. We looked at the house last night. We pulled everything up, got a little bit of information basically about what she owes on the house. And then I told her that we would get together today on a conference call. And if she would get her paperwork together, I'd verify the numbers that I was looking at versus what she gave me. And I'm just wondering, what can any of us do to help somebody that's in that situation? Under
The house,
normal circumstances, I would just, turn it over to an investor and say, good luck with it. Let me know what happens. But I'd like to be able to be a resource for her.
okay, and she's in Texas, right?
Yes, she's in Texas.
And you guys are super aggressive on foreclosures. Okay, I want to get my facts straight. She divorced her ex-husband. He allowed her to stay in the house. He took title, and the note was in his name. She is now the representative of his estate.
Almost. She actually purchased the home first. When she married him, they lived in the home together. When they divorced, she moved out of the house and sold the house to him. And she sold the house to him in 2018.
But
So
didn't you say she's living there?
she is currently living there. So he actually passed away, I think, if I have my notes correct here from our conversation yesterday. He passed away in 2018.
And then she moved back in.
And she moved back in.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And she doesn't have anywhere to go.
Well, she says she's all packed up and she can move. That's not she's got some place to go, but she wants to know what to do with the house so that it doesn't come back and bite her as the independent executor in the rear. And I don't think she wants to just give the house up. I think she actually would like to see something happen with that.
Yeah, she doesn't have any. She doesn't. I mean, assuming her the title was just held in the ex-husband's name, correct?
That is correct.
And the note was just in the ex-husband's name, correct?
That is correct.
Then she has no liability. Like, she doesn't have to worry about her own financial or legal liabilities. And I don't care what the lenders told her. She's not, like, you can't tell them to go sue her ex-husband. Like, she, as an executor, you don't take on liability of the deceased. If she wants to stay there, she can. Is she financeable?
I don't think so. She just lost her job, so that means she doesn't have any income coming in. My
And
thought,
you know quite a few investors, right?
I do. I know quite a few investors here. Yes.
Do you know anyone that's flush with cash that a lot of investors are just sitting still on wholesale stuff? I mean, one of the ways you can put this together is just have them go in, buy the house, and then sell it to her on a contract for deed, and then put a 3-year balloon in it. And the reason that's safer is you don't have to go through a judicial foreclosure. Like, if they don't live up to their end of the deal, he holds title. Now, that's only really going to work in this environment because we all, the distressed inventory hasn't worked its way through the market. So if you can find a cash buyer who's itching to pull the trigger and get back in, like some of these people who are buying stocks right now, even though we're going lower, that's your most likely, I think that's your most likely workout scenario. So cash buyer pays whatever the note amount is, like whatever the payoff is today, pay that.
So that's going to include all of the money that hasn't been paid. It sounded like she hasn't made a payment in a year on the property.
Yeah, and it might not paper. Like, you've got to look at, what, like, and an investor can pay a premium on a deal like that, as long as the borrower is credit worthy and but it's a risky deal. I mean, they may have to, it might not work out. Now, the other alternative is she can do a short sale, which is not going to hurt her credit at all. And if she wants to do that, my partner Jim, his wife Pam, has done several short sales in probate. Now, where that would be beneficial to her is it basically moves to a different part of the bank, and it may take them in this environment, it might take them a year or two to process the short sale. So she could continue living there for free. And once they engage with a short sale, so once you get the property listed and submit an offer to the lender, if they engage in the short sale with you, in my experience, it moves to, special assets, and they're not trying to put it on the auction block. So you could buy her some time and, have a short sale instead of a distressed sale in the neighborhood. So that's kind of your other option. That basically just serves her by giving her a free place to live temporarily. But she will have to move eventually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Short sale. I hadn't even thought about that. That one just escaped my mind. That's actually a good call on that. And I've done short sales before. So that's a possibility okay, good. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, that was a good one, Colette. Thank you. Next up, we have Linda. Linda Booker also wants the handout. Let me see, Colette, let me mute you. Guys, if you go to our Facebook group, All the Leads Mastermind, you might not have my screen actually, because I think I just shared the PowerPoint window. Yeah. There we go. So if you go to All the Leads Mastermind, this is our Facebook group. And if you're not in this, you can see Kat is posting all of these archives. Here we are now live. But look for Shift Happens session 5 is the one that we did on Friday. So in the notes, you'll see a whole bunch of links and information, but you can go through here, and here is a PDF of the slide deck and all of the links that you're looking for. So instead of sending 500 separate emails, you guys can go here, and my mouse disappeared. That happens when I'm screen sharing sometimes. So nice, just a heads up, you guys all have those links archived. And I think I better switch my share back to PowerPoint so you don't see my Zoom controls. Okay. Let's see what we have next. Alan says the sound is good. Today is Saturday. Brian, you might be right. I don't think it matters. So Joyce got the handout. Colette got her question answered. Yeah, so let's so Federico said he had a closing. Man, this is killing me. Federico, if I'm not butchering your name, I unmuted you if you'd like to share your story with us about your challenging closing that you got across the finish line. Hollywood Renee. All right. Federico does not want to tell us a story. So Renee, I'm going to come find you and see how things are in Hollywood. I don't know why. Oh, because I'm looking at R, not H. Hollywood Renee, you're live.
Can you hear me?
I have that. So is that an official name change? Is it on your business card yet?
I figured it'd be a lot more interesting than real estate, Renee. Probably more memorable. I did that. I'm glad I made you laugh.
So tell us where you're at.
I kind of made a little bit alluded to this on Friday. I more wanted to bend your ear because I love how you think about money. And, I came in, I had a couple transactions that just didn't happen that I was banking on. And they've gone by the wayside right now. And I'm carrying a good amount of debt. And I've done everything I can. I've got some good banks. I have USAA and maybe Federal Credit Union. And even Chase was cool with putting off, my credit card payments, although the interest is still accruing. And, after all this is kind of settled down and we don't know when this is going to be, it's like, I'm not making my payments. I just don't know kind of what to do because I don't want to blow through a better part of my cash, to just kind of keep up with my credit card payments. It's my fault I got myself here, but I'm here.
Yeah.
And
So what kind of, is this good debt or bad debt?
Bad debt. It's credit card debt.
Okay. And
and
what do you have in the pipeline?
That's it. I got nothing right this second. It
So,
all sort of fell away.
I mean, logic will tell you what your situation is 90 days from now, right?
Right.
And right now, while you have the option to not have your credit score damaged by not making payments, I think that's in your best interest. You're better off to keep your powder dry to when you will be penalized for not making payments, and work something out with those companies. And then in the meantime, use that money to help generate some income in the pipeline somehow.
Yeah. Well, okay. Thank you. And that's my second sort of part of the question, which is, I think I know what you're going to say, but I just want to hear the general answer of, I don't know if I'm going to like double down in probate on marketing, but I think the answer, this is more like I'm bending your ear, is to just keep calling more, like you guys always say. And then I did let off a little bit on the mailers because you and I had that conversation privately, but I'm thinking now just go back to that versus some kind of, Facebook potentiality, but really just go direct to a source again with mailers.
So
Just sort of a
here's
thought
what
on
I'll
that.
tell you. And guys, like Renee and I have gotten to know each other over the last year or so. She's been a customer, so I know quite a few things about her. But Renee thinks outside of the box, and is not afraid to go do unconventional things in real estate. So what I would say to you is your highest and best use in the industry right now is being a bird dog for investors. So probate is one pillar of that, but you need to be talking to every cash buyer in Southern California, and don't forget the hedge fund money either. Like, I'm talking about institutional buyers. Right when this started to happen, I went to all the landlords and said, hey, who wants out? Who wants to sell? Catch a falling knife. And I put together a portfolio of 860 houses here in Roanoke. And unfortunately, the buyer has decided to keep their powder dry and back away from it. But I at least tried something, right? I made my move. I put together almost $90 million in inventory in a single agreement. And it didn't close, but damn, it was still exciting, right? So, but make aggressive moves like that. When everyone else is watching Tiger King and sitting on their hands, wondering, chewing their fingernails, what can you do to meet cash buyers? How many Facebook groups, meetup groups, virtual RIA meetings? How much can you attend? And the other thing I told you several months ago is you need to also consider, with your skill set, you need to consider other markets, like what secondary and tertiary markets might be less competitive or have less of a judicial backlog than you're going to face right there in your home market. What about St. Louis? What about Des Moines? What about, Omaha? Like those, and the towns surrounding those. So if you have this huge judicial foreclosure backlog and criminal court backlog, like how long does that delay your probate if you absolutely are relying on it for a paycheck? So my advice to you is use the skill set you already have and diversify by finding assets that match the cash money's appetite. So go find the cash buyers, find out what their appetite is, and then go source the assets based on what you learn. That's your best chance. I mean, it's short-term money, like getting paid in the next 60 days is going to be finding out who is willing to pull the trigger from an investment standpoint and on what, and go find it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's perfect. I'll follow up if I need to with other brainstorming on the Thursday call, but that's got it. Thank you.
Well, thanks for stepping up, Renee. All right. Next, Dennis. Dennis, you are on the air, sir. Dennis Malonis.
Hello, Chad.
How are you, sir?
Doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, doing pretty good. What can we help you with today?
Well, we're working through the leads. We've got several things that are kind of building up in the pipeline. I do like the idea about diversifying, finding the cash buyers ready to go that are not not moving much, but give them the right thing. However, on the phone calls right now, I've learned that logic makes people think, but emotions make them act. So not only do we take the fact that they've lost a loved one, but now we put this on top of it. Is there any type of a softening more than we try to soften this up our discussions when we're talking to folks these days?
I mean, my best advice is, and this is really not that different from the advice I give in any other environment, don't be so damn professional. And I'm not accusing you of that, but that's the mistake I see most people make. Like, especially when someone's emotionally raw and you call and you're like, hi, this is Chad Corbett from ABC Realty. I can help you list your house. Look at my listing presentation. Have you seen the new iPad Pros? And like, people don't give a damn about that. They care about compassion and empathy and being treated like a human. So just check yourself and see, like, are you treating people the way you would if they were in your church parking lot? And if not, then start, right? So open it and be like, hey, this is Dennis. I know this is a pretty tough time, but I also know you're at home and I'm at home. And I just feel like it's part of my duty to get through this, to get the community through this, is to help share what we can do to help others. And as part of that, we go to the courthouse. We still have people going to the courthouse that are allowed to have access to find out which families are going through probate. And we reach out early, even at the risk of people not being ready to deal with it right now, because we know what a big difference we can make. And we run a virtual business, so this isn't that much different for us. We just can't meet with you at the house, but we do have tools in place. And just kind of approach it that way. Like, we're here in the community. We sent a guy down to the courthouse just so we could reach out, because we know we can make a big difference. Considering everything that's going on, what would you guys say is, if you could get just one thing off your plate, what would that be? Like, what's the most pressing thing right now? And has this COVID made it worse?
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. One more question before I turn it over to somebody else. If we reach out to, let's say, somebody that has lost a child, and of course we don't know that when we make the calls, do we?
No.
Any particular, just the same empathy that we typically do? And
Yeah, I mean, that's uncommon. It has happened to a few of our subscribers. I mean, usually children don't have enough assets, so they're exempt from probate. But if they do not meet the small estate exemption, then sometimes they will have to go through probate. Like, if they were the beneficiary of a trust, like their grandparents had died and left them trust money, is a common scenario. The thing you need to realize, though, I mean, these parents have, they're going through, this one hurts even worse than most, right? And it's something that will literally change their life forever. So to shy away from them just because you're afraid you're going to get your ass chewed, if you're really providing a community service, if you're really proud of what you do, reach out. I mean, you like, don't apologize for reaching out. Like, you called them with real value. You called to see if there's any way you could help. And I don't know, did you hear the role play that I did on the last role play call with the murder suicide with the two sons?
no, I don't believe I did.
You might go listen to that. I mean, that was an honest to God how I approach these sensitive things. So it was role play number, I don't know, it was the March role play.
Right, okay.
But there's one scenario on there. It was a real life scenario where it was a 16 and a 20-year-old brothers, and their father had killed the mother and then turned the gun on himself, and they were just shattered, right? And she had no clue. She was making a phone call to a 20-year-old who was unemployed, had nowhere to live, never wanted to see that house again, and all of a sudden was taking care of his 16-year-old brother. But she was already in the conversation, and she let off the gas and came back and asked us, hey, what would you do here? So I think if you listen to that role play, you'll kind of hear how I would approach it in a role play scenario, and that'll probably help you. But I mean, I'm never sorry for offering value and offering to help somebody. And I really believe if you're willing to open up to me, there's something I can do for everybody. I might not be able to monetize it, but that doesn't matter at that point, right?
Right.
Your reputation will earn you just as much money as you make on your contracts.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, great. Thanks a lot, Chad.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. All right. Next up, Chad. Let me come find you here, man. Bill Gross, good to see you, sir. All right, Chad Eldridge, you are unmuted on your side. So Chad said, I applied for the grant money, but I haven't had so much as an email from them, nor a deposit in my account. I think we applied approximately the same time. Have you heard anything at all? Chad, if you have a microphone, you should be able to talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you are.
All right, there you go. Sorry.
So here's the deal, man. I don't know a single person who's gotten a single dollar, and I know folks who started applying for stuff the second it was released. The Friday was the first day that you could apply for EIDL. They've, in my opinion, they're writing very broad stroke language that even the lenders don't know what the details are. So on Friday, the banks were overwhelmed because underwriting standards had not come down to them. They had all these people flooding in, and they're like, we don't know what to do. So most guys I know went back to the bank this morning to get that in place. My understanding of the EIDL grant portion now, having gone through and reread stuff, my money didn't show up. I applied, I don't know, it was last Tuesday, I think, Monday night or Tuesday morning. I applied, whatever day I posted that post on Facebook. I've reread the language, and I've talked to some other folks, attorneys, and what I believe is true, but I still can't verify, even through attorneys and bankers. I believe that the grant portion will only be granted, it will only be sent if you subsequently apply for an EIDL benefit. So when you apply for the EIDL through any FDIC insured bank, if I'm not using enough acronyms, guys, just let me know. But when you apply for the PPP or the EIDL through the SBA at the FDIC insured bank, did you get all that? Then they're going to look at your application for the full paper application, which I also included in the recap on Friday. There's two applications, and I didn't share the old one with you guys. I only gave you the new version. It was released, I think, April 3rd. I put the date and the file name. But when you fill out that paper application, take it to the bank, and they process that, it's my understanding that then if you're granted an EIDL benefit, they will release a $10,000 grant rapidly deployed while you wait the 25 to 35 projected days to fund your EIDL benefit. That's my current understanding of it. And I think that's why nobody got any checks, because they put that out there with very limited information and details. And then later said, okay, on Friday, you can apply for EIDL. And that is part of the grant portion is under the EIDL part of the CARES Act. So I think before you're going to get the $10,000 grant, you actually have to go take your paper application to your local bank and apply. And whether you get EIDL or not, that may or may not release the $10,000 grant payment to you. Clear as mud, right?
Exactly. No worries. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. In summary, nobody knows what the hell is going on. Steve Carney, you have good stuff to share. Let's see what you have to say. Hey, Steve Carney, you are unmuted on my side if you want to talk. Steve said, arbitrage, determine the amount owed, potentially amount to be provided to the PR, and move. Oh, I think you were trying to help Colette with her deal. So are you coming, Steve? It looks like you're might still be muted on.
I'm unmuted.
There you are. Yeah. Did we cover what you suggested for Colette? Anything else you want to share with her?
No, actually, when it just came to mind, I put that out there just to see if I was on the right track. And when I heard your response, I thought, okay, I'm pretty close.
Yeah, I think I think she has two options. If she wants to stay there long term, she can find an investor that will close and carry the note, or she can do a short sale and stay there as long as that takes.
Probably the short sale is probably the better option.
Yeah, they probably so. Free rent. All right. Oh, Christy's asking loaded questions on Facebook. Steve, I muted you back out there. So Christy on Facebook, I don't think she's actually here in Zoom, so we can't have the conversation with her. But she asked a question: how much of a percentage decrease do you expect to see in housing prices? Kat, I'm going to kick that one to you. I'll be back.
Are you ready for my optimism?
So it's hard to say at this point, guys. I mean, some of the headwinds that concern me the most is unemployment and not knowing what that is. Like California reported this morning, they have a true 15% unemployment rate. However, that's with our whole damn economy offline. So my pessimism gauge on real estate values is going to be based on how long it takes us to bring our economy back online, exactly what a forbearance looks like when the lenders are actually told, because everyone's offering a forbearance, but no one knows what it looks like to get out of that. And a lot of people are talking about, just give you a forbearance, which basically creates a balloon when you lift the forbearance. Well, most people are going to default if that's the case. If you're not re-amortizing that loan, then there's going to be heavy defaults, because where the hell did you get money? You got a 90-day forbearance and you had 90 days without income. How are you going to make that? So how the banks handle the lifting of the forbearance and the working out the balance from that will be a big factor. The real unemployment level, once we bring our economy back online, will also be a big factor. A lot of, almost 50% of our GDP is through small business. And a lot of small businesses aren't going to stay alive long enough to figure out what PPP or EIDL or SBA is going to do for them. And that's just the really unfortunate truth. And I am scrambling in the background to do my best to actually set up a consulting firm to help those companies. So that's going to play a role. And then how long it takes the court system to clear evictions and foreclosures, like how the court backlog and how long that takes for the assets that will be distressed and will come through. How long is that going to take? So all those are the three big, and lending. Like, it seems like the Federal Reserve has proven no matter how bad that credit and secondary mortgage markets and mortgage-backed security markets get, they're willing to throw whatever at it. It's just like, hell, print more. So that I have long-term concerns over that because of inflation, but that's just going to make your houses worth, the median home price is going to be $1 million in 10 years. So we came into this in a really stable residential market, with limited supply and high demand. As long as we can bring our economy back online, as long as we don't pull the trigger too soon and we can bring our economy back online quickly and unemployment isn't that terrible, we could be okay. If unemployment is greater than 10%, then you're going to have some massive default problems. And because of forbearances and some of the hodgepodge of different programs at the lender level, the county level, the state level, the federal level, and all of the confusion around that, 2008 is going to look like a walk in the park. And all of that uncertainty will probably cause people to kind of go to the sidelines. And that's where, if you were in previous sessions, you heard me say you're coming out of this not into a buyer's market, not into a seller's market. You're coming into a professional's market. So if you can think outside of the box and you understand more advanced real estate and you can help, if you can step up and be a leader, not, I don't know if you guys have ever read The Sales Dogs, but like the golden retriever. Most realtors or most salespeople are the golden retrievers. What can I get you? What can I do for you? Like, you're in control. I'm just here to obey. And it's those people are going to have a hard time making a living in this environment. if you can step up and lead and say, here's good information, you can try, like, I'll put my reputation on the line. You can trust that this is true. This is a deal and this is why. Or, and go create that with creative financing, or go find distressed assets that won't be hung up in the judicial system, like probate, and find ways to, bring inventory to cash buyers. Like, everything we can do as a professional to keep the market moving forward will limit the amount of equity that we have to lose, like the correction that we have. So my advice is think outside of the box, find out who is willing to do a transaction, go bring them assets. You can be on both sides of it if you need, or can be. But the more active we are, I think the less of a chance we're gonna see that a market collapse. Some people are saying 40%. I'm not quite that bearish on housing, on single family homes, just because I think we do have good fundamentals behind it. The thing that worries me the most is commercial real estate. And it's not, I don't know how many people on this call are really playing in that space, but it does affect the broader real estate market and the broader lending environment. And there is a lot of bad debt on the books for a lot of banks. And a lot of people have been buying multifamily at compressed cap rates and, quite frankly, paying too much. And they don't have any room built in for a rent correction. I think you'll see rents soften 20 to 30%, which will soften commercial real estate valuations. And guys that are trying to refinance are going to, some people who had a refi strategy won't be able to refi. They're going to be stuck in that with whatever their original note was. When that hits the balloon, or when that debt becomes mature, they can't cover. So I think you're going to see a lot of distress in multifamily, hotel, and retail in the commercial space. And where that will bleed over into residential is how much stress it puts on the banks. When I showed you guys the lending problem, I think it was last Wednesday in our session, the stress scores behind the scenes at the Federal Reserve, like what they're watching on credit market stress scores, are through the roof. And a lot of it is, and the other big thing that is putting stress on banks, even though it's completely unrelated to real estate, is oil's $20 a barrel or less. And the bankruptcies have now started in Texas, Oklahoma, up in the shale fields. So American gas companies just can't hang on, and the Saudis and the Russians knew that. That was it was a strategic move. So you're going to see a massive amount. There's $9.5 billion. No, it is trillion. Of like bad debt, with a corporate debt with not good grades, and that's going to put it's going to continue to put pressure on the banking system. So where the real estate market may be impacted is we're going to reduce the demand by tightening credit guidelines and lowering, buyers have tighter restrictions. Like they have higher qualifying standards. They have less money in their retirement accounts. I've seen people, buyers who had to exercise their finance contingency because they lost their 401k or a good chunk of it and no longer qualified for the house they had under contract. But some of these extenuating circumstances that are pulling buyers out of the market and taking away some of that demand is the risk I see. I don't really see it being a 40% correction, though. And obviously, it is market to market. I think your top 25 MSAs where the prices were overheated and people were very emotional and just overpaying for houses, you're gonna take it on the chin. Markets like Roanoke, in 2008, we had two neighborhoods, basically where irresponsible lending took place. We had huge price corrections, but other than that, like in this zip code, there wasn't much movement at all in prices. So that's my read on it, Christy. Oh yeah, Charles, that's a good, that's a fun conversation. Charles Lee, you are allowed to talk if you would like to. So Charles said, just curious, what new industries, if any, do we see coming out of this pandemic? Not necessarily real estate related. I think you're going to see a lot of, maybe not new industries, but you're going to see forced innovation within existing industries. Look at what schools are doing right now. Schools, even including New York City, the largest school district probably in the world, certainly in the country, they very quickly pivoted and started teaching online. You have title companies doing Zoom closings. The ones I called today, like they're like, yeah, it's been interesting figuring out all this tech, but we now close over Zoom. They're asking people not to come in, and if they don't have devices or webcams or laptops, that they actually do drive-by closing. So what I think you're going to see, and that's the other thing that concerns me for commercial real estate, I think a lot of companies are going to realize that they're going to have to tighten their belt in this new economy, and they're going to leave people. They're going to let more people work virtually. So I think you're going to see more freedom for a lot of people. You're going to see lower costs for companies, lower operational cost, but that's going to come at a pretty. It's going to be a pretty rude awakening for the guys holding office and retail space. I think this is going to be good for e-commerce. More people are shopping online now, obviously, but more people who traditionally shopped in stores, I think, are going to realize what they were missing when it came to e-commerce. So I think you'll see opportunities in those spaces. And in real estate, I mean, the forced innovation in real estate, I think we're going to see, I think that the courts will ultimately, and this is not based in anything other than just my thinking, but I think the courts are going to be facing such a backlog. They're going to be forced to have virtual court right alongside a physical court in order to, it's the only way I see feasible that we get out of this. Because you have, criminal, civil, all family courts, all courts are basically just sidelined for not all, but a large chunk are. So it's going to create a backlog. So I think you're going to see efficiencies in public, like at the public level, that we haven't seen before. I think that'll be good for as far as getting real estate recorded, as far as having data access. That may improve. It's going to force some of these counties to do things that to come into a new world. The other thing is, I think that we're going to have a new economy. This is proven. I think a lot of people didn't realize the underlying distress that we had in the U.S. economy, and I think there's going to be an opportunity for. I think it'll be good for small business. What we've done since 2008, we've built a house of cards based on basically just handing out debt to everybody and ignoring a long-term debt cycle. So I think that value businesses are going to be rewarded greatly in this, and the ones who survive will be. I think this is going to be a good thing for small towns. So those are some of the things I see. I'm trying to think of what else. Like there's I don't know. There's a lot. Those are some of my observations, though. Yeah. Federico doesn't have a microphone. He also, that's a good suggestion that I haven't made. Federico said BPOs are a good way to create some cash. So if you've never done a BPO, it's a broker price opinion, and it's something you can do from home. I think, last time I looked, I think, usually $50 is I think a common income for that. So if you can get $50 just doing a market analysis, basically, it's a good way to earn cash right now. That's a good point, Bill. I'm trying to see if Jim's here. I don't see him here. So Bill said maybe Jim or Pam can discuss their short sale process. So guys, we'll post a link, and you've already seen the phone number in the comments. My business partner, Jim Sullivan, his wife, Pam Sullivan, has done over 2,000 short sales, and a lot of them have been in the probate space. Their number is, I think it's 954-584-0000. Let me make sure I'm going by memory. Yeah, 954-584-0000. Nationwide short sales. And Pam can help you out. I have done several with Pam, and I will tell you that it's amazing how much work she does. She makes sure that she gets herself paid by negotiating with the lender, and you keep your full commission. I found that if I did a good job marketing and bringing an offer to her, I didn't have to do anything else. So these were from my standpoint, they were just as easy as any conventional transaction. They just took longer. And the fastest I've ever done one was 60 days. I think the longest, we did one with Chase once that took 25 months. But yeah, Pam is really great for short sales. Margie said she can't physically go to a bank. Yeah, you're in Manhattan. I bet it's interesting where you are. Margie, I don't know if you have a mic, but I will come see if I can unlock you here. Well, I don't see you now, Margie. MC. Well, so Margie, I can't find you to have a conversation. I would like to hear what it's like in Manhattan right now. Anyways, you can apply. It's a paper contract, but it's obviously, I mean, it comes to you in a PDF, so you can fill it out and email it to your banker or fax it to your banker. But yeah, you don't physically have to go into the bank right now. They're also doing banking appointments here. Like if you want to go physically meet with your banker, you just schedule an appointment. Yeah, Bill, maybe I'll have, actually Pam and I have been talking about that for a while, doing a tip from the trainer. But yeah, good suggestion. And Margie, I don't know why I can't find you in our list of attendees. Sandra Smith from the great state of Washington. Let me find you here, Sandra. Are you there? You're unmuted if on my end.
I'm here.
You're talking about building a spec house? Come on, meow.
Oh, dear heavens. I started this process a few months ago. I closed on 2 lots in Ocean Shores, which happens to be mostly a second home vacation kind of area. And I closed on 2 lots like literally 2 weeks before this thing broke out. And so we paid cash. I have those. I'm holding on to those. I'm figuring if I started building in the next month, even if I could find financing, I'm going to have a completed house in a very depreciated market, I'm thinking.
So you own the land already, right? It's already
on those 2. But then I also am in contract on a 3rd one that's in Roy, which is more rural. And that one I'm in contract, and I already did one extension just because I'm trying to buy time to figure out, do we go ahead and close this?
Do they, and the one in Roy, do they own the land outright?
I think she has a small loan on it. So my thought was that I might, because I was going to pay cash for that, I thought perhaps I would offer or try to negotiate her to carry the paper so I don't have to put more cash out.
Yep. So here's one of the things you could do, and this is going to get really creative. You want to make sure you have an attorney help you with this. Okay. But you could give her a down payment that would take out the first mortgage right now. Go ahead and she would transfer title to you and carry a first. Now, the language in that first, your amortization schedule would be based on, and you could even do it 2 different ways. Like you can basically allow her to share in the upside and make lower payments. So let's just say if she wanted $1,000 a month until it was paid off, you could say, all right, I'll give you $500 a month. But when the property appreciates, whenever I sell the property, well, you'll actually be a 50-50 partner with me on it. So you can cut your payments, and if the property doesn't appreciate and you don't sell it, you've limited your risk, your exposure. But if the property does go up, if she wants to put her money where her mouth is and expect you to close on something based on a future value, then say, okay, let's share in that risk. I'll close at this price, but I'm going to make a payment on half of that price. And then whenever I resell it, we'll have a basis value for the land. Even if I build on it, we can still keep a basis value for the land. And obviously me taking the risk, putting a house on it is going to make the land more. And you would want to set limits on that, like a future value, a shared appreciation not to exceed a value of X. Like you would want to cap that, because if you sold it with this beautiful house on it for 600 grand, and the land was no way, and it was worth more than 2, and she wanted to say that it was worth half, you just need to be really careful that you establish a basis value, and you establish a payment plan that gets recorded, it gets notarized, and say, here's our payment plan, here's our agreement on the back end. But you can do it in such a way that where you both win. You can lower your monthly payment. You don't have to spend all your cash right now, and you can share that risk with her. And if she has the opportunity to just let it remain hers, and she owes for the mortgage and the taxes and everything else. So to me, that looks like a good way for the seller. It's a good thing for the seller, and it's a good thing for you. I think that's your best option for that one. As far as building, I mean, you're in a market where it's incredibly expensive. I mean, even pulling permits is just crazy in Washington and Oregon.
$12,000 just for
freaking insane.
Yeah.
Like in Oregon's even worse. So my best advice to you is, until you see certainty, and I mean until Airbnb numbers are back to where they were, I would not do it, because you don't have to. Like, you're not pinched yet. If you go draw down on your construction to perm loan and start buying materials, yeah, it's great for the economy. It's great for contractors, but we don't know what it looks like as the vacation side of this. We don't know what the traveler's mentality is. We don't know if people have money to travel this year. What we know is if we keep our cash, we can always build in the future on land we own, right? It's the next thing. It's the next best thing to gold to be owning right now. So my advice would be comfortable with the decision you made. Know that your lots are going to be there when you're ready, but don't rush into this until you fully understand the long-term implications of the travel industry, because right now we don't know. And I talked to friends in Hawaii last night, and they're selling multi-million-dollar beachfront in Kaanapali, and what was in the pipeline is closing, mostly cash, but people aren't exactly flocking. Well, they're not allowed to. Like, there's very few flights into the islands right now. But even the realtors in Maui, 100% of their business is that niche, and we don't know what it looks like. So my advice would be sit tight on the land. Just know that you made a good decision, and it's better than holding empty real estate, or real estate with tenants who don't have to pay because your state told them they don't. And you've got a rising culture of don't pay the rent, we're striking.
Right.
So holding land is a lot better than holding defaulted rental property right now.
Cool. Yeah. And just, that is great. And I appreciate that. And we'll follow that. Just a note, Finance Corporation of America, or Finance Company of America, FCOA. I had a construction line of credit set up with them. And when all of this stuff broke, so we had a $900,000 line of credit that we were going to use for the construction. Mm-hmm. And they said, we're not funding those loans. So they're not doing any new construction loans. So
yeah, that's I called that. So that's been a month ago. I sold all my stocks. 3 weeks ago, I swept all my lines of credit, because I remember what happened last time. And unfortunately, that is happening. Like, people are going to pull lines of credit. The reason we're 6 million housing units short right now is because they pulled lines of credit off builders last time. And they haven't been, across the board, they haven't been so aggressive and so early to act, because the Fed's been willing to throw more money at it this time. So I'm hoping they don't completely tighten up, because there's a lot of cranes in the air, especially in your neck of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's a lot of partially built apartment buildings, and I mean, it's housing that we need. So they need to finish this stuff out. So I hope the banks learned their lesson in 2008. They crippled small home builders, and those are the guys that were building affordable inventory. And, the bailing out just the top and then allowing the banks to completely freeze up, they put all the money in, but it didn't put liquidity back into the system. So I hope that it's one of the risks that we are facing here, is if they do continue to pull lines of credit, it's going to make the housing crisis that much worse. My fingers are crossed that they learned their lesson and they're not going to do that this time. But I'm sorry that happened to you. Did they close the line or did they suspend the line?
They suspended.
Well, that's better. That's a lot better, actually. So that's encouraging. Like,
Yeah.
someday they'll call you and be like, okay, remember that money we dangled in front of your face? You can have it now.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandra. All right. Next up, who do we have? Brian Silvestri. Yeah. So Brian, let me find you here. I think it's 120 days. Well, I don't see Brian anymore. So Brian said, so you can freeze your credit cards, not use them, and then you don't have to pay them. Is that right? How long is that? I would call your credit card company. A lot of this stuff is up in the air, and the best answer is the person who's expecting you to pay it. So if there's anything that you can't pay or you're considering not paying, call that person, call that lender, call the person you owe money to and say, hey, listen, here's my deal. What are my options? But I think most everyone, utility companies, credit card companies, banks, have agreed to basically not harm your credit score for at least, I believe it's a 120-day period. If anybody knows, I've been reading so much, my wires get crossed. So if anyone can back me up on that. How long is your credit score protected if you're not making payments? Rhonda, that's an interesting question. Let me come find you here. Rhonda B, you are unmuted if you want to talk to us. There you are, Margie. I found you. Your hand raise helped me. You're unmuted on my side.
Okay, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How is your crisis in Manhattan?
So I sent you a note, but basically, everything's on lockdown. Basically, you hardly see anybody out on the street. As of yesterday, they said people should not even go to the grocery store or the pharmacy, which were the only two things that people have been told they could go to. Of course, for weeks now, there's no showings. You can't go into a building to look at an apartment. If you don't live in the building, you're not going into the building, period.
Yeah.
Maybe you're visiting somebody, but I personally don't know anybody visiting anybody. In my own building, I've been inside for the last 3 weeks. I haven't gone out of my apartment. Nobody's come into my apartment because I'm old. They do send things. I bought supplies that would last me at least a month before, when at the very, very beginning, anything that I needed, any kind of food, any kind of anything else. I do have masks, even though I'm not going out. I do have gloves if I go down in the hallway to open the compactor room, to throw my garbage out. No service people are anywhere to be seen. The men in my building all wear masks. They all wear gloves. The residents are told to stay away from them, 6 feet at least.
So Margie, one thing I'm really curious about, the guys that are always in Times Square with the end is near signs? Where are they?
Times Square. Times Square is empty.
But I wonder where they went.
I don't think
Are they still holding that sign somewhere telling everybody the end is near?
I mean, the street, they've shown pictures of the streets. The streets are empty.
Yeah, I've seen that too. A friend of mine flew a drone down the middle of Waikiki this morning, or it was yesterday, and I mean, Waikiki is the only place that I think I've been. Well, I don't know, other than at least on this side of the world, the only like place I've been with the same population density, and it's just completely empty. Nobody's out. So,
But
all right, Margie, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I want you to tell the truth. Have you been like the Italians? Have you been on the balcony singing to your neighbors? Don't lie to me.
I don't have a balcony, so I haven't been out. But my sister has a huge terrace. She's lived in the apartment for 40 something years, 50 years, I would say. And this is the first time she's ever used it.
Yeah, that's like a vacation. Oh, we can go outside.
Yeah, that's what she said. But,
Well, Margie, hang in there. Is there anything else we can help you with? Thank you for checking in with us.
I have another question. Since you can't go into buildings even to look at apartments, and of course in Manhattan, most buildings are co-ops. Any idea for finding buyers?
For the listings you have, or finding buyer? Yeah. So one of the ideas I'll share with you, we can go over it in more detail, but if your seller can do videos, my suggestion would be anything that can be light and humorous. So we're so willing to jump on an app or a website and find the person that we're going to share our life with. So why not coach your sellers how to just take this, like, listen, let's have a little fun with this. And like, let's write a dating profile for your house. And then let's do a first date walkthrough, and like have them treat their co-op like it's a partner. So people are out there looking for their life partner, and just have fun with it. Anything you can do that's lighthearted like that, have your seller do a walkthrough and be funny, be goofy. And just show just be real, and then send that out, add it to your listing. Send out email blasts to your buyers list, send out emails to other realtors, but things like that, if you turn your entire listing portfolio, if you turn that into like make a dating profile for every house, and then have your seller do this funny walkthrough talking about it like it's a person, and then send that out to all the realtors, is that not going to make us all feel better? Are we not going to get a laugh out of it? And will that not be the one listing with the most attention, and potentially the one that gets on the news? And it's like, look what this one realtor, 50-year veteran of the Manhattan market, look at the idea she came up with. And then your listing gets put on the local news. And that's one of the ideas I'll show you, when you do something that's really different in a time like this, you should always email it to every local news channel, because they're looking for any kind of good news they can add into the fold, because it's just negative, 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 negative. And every once in a while, if you notice, every night, like when NBC News closes off, they tell one little snippet of something encouraging or positive, even though it's an hour of just, the world's ending. But you never know when you're going to be that sliver. And when everyone in Manhattan might see your goofy listing video where you're trying to get people to date your listings. It's just an idea that I have, anything that's a little more lighthearted. You can obviously do Matterports and 360 videos and things that help people. But right now, I think what people need the most is just to remember they're human, and to laugh every once in a while, and realize that this is gonna end. So anything that you can do like that to make people laugh and spend time looking at your listings is my best idea.
Well, that's an idea. Okay. I appreciate that.
You're like, well, it's not a good one, but it's an idea.
No, because the thing is that one of my properties has a guy in it. He's a renter, and I don't know whether he's capable of using his phone, but I'll find out. The other property is empty. The owners are away.
Okay. And do you have anyone that can go over there for you?
You cannot get into a building.
Okay. You have photography, right?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. So I can put a portfolio together.
Yeah. So you could even do the same thing, and you could, the other idea would treat it like an SPCA ad, like the Sarah McLachlan ads. please feel sorry for my empty co-op, and please let your buyers know that it's there waiting for them. Just anything like that you can do. I think you've heard me talk in Mastery about my quirky sign writers. I mean, I make up the dumbest things and put on sign writers and just get covered up in buyer leads. But it works. It's because it's different, right?
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Great.
all
Thank
right.
you, Chad. Be well.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Margie. It's been a while since we talked. Rhonda. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. Let me see if I can find you on the phone. Oh, shoot. Rhonda, I don't know your phone number by heart, so I don't know which one you are now. So Rhonda was wanting to discuss how to make the CARES Act a positive for probate sellers. I mean, the biggest thing, Rhonda, if you're on the phone line, I don't know how to unmute you right now. I mean, the biggest benefits in the CARES Act are, like they have forbearance if they're paying debt service. They have access to their retirement accounts that they didn't have a week or so ago. So if it's a family who's it's not necessarily that it's not associated with the actual probate, but it's the personal part of the CARES Act, right? So the personal part is your credit score can't be hurt. You get some financial relief. You can access your retirement accounts without penalty. You can loan yourself $100,000 on a 3-year note. So there's some encouragement there. It for elderly people who oftentimes your personal reps will be. You're now allowed to get up to 3 months worth of Medicare Part B. Your prescriptions can be filled for up to 3 months. Like the insurance will pay. Medicare Part B will pay for it. So there's some medical aspects. In the summary and like in the document that Kat reposted and the one that was posted on Friday, there's summaries of that. And I'd say the best one with the personal aspects is the governor of Oregon had actually did a summary of bills and programs, and I included that. And that is very comprehensive. A lot of this stuff just talks about small business and it skips over the people aspect of it. But if you look at that as a senator, not a governor, the senator of governor, if you look at, my good Lord, the senator of Oregon made a really great summary of bills that I included in that recap on Friday. So check that out and look at some of the medical aspects of it. And I think you'll find the benefits you're looking for the families. Gisela? Yeah, Bill. Let me see. Sounds like Bill's doing some BPOs. All right. Bill J., you're allowed to talk if you'd like to. Sounds like you have some experience. In case you can't find it. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay. What my concern was with the BPOs, they have to at least make sure the house is standing. And I know it's a little difficult getting on the road, but after you've been involved in one, it just becomes a nightmare. And the particular house that we're at, they have a listing agent, but they basically do nothing other than put it on the MLS. And you were to contact an auction service, so which we did, and we're about $85,000 apart. So when we went out there, the inside of the house basically became a teenager hangout. It was destroyed, and probably 3/4 of the back wall was ripped off. And the photos that are on the MLS were nothing like the house that we walked through. So I contacted them, and they finally called me back. And I told them, I said, look, I don't know where you got your photos from, but they don't match the house. Oh, yeah, they do. I said, tell you what, if you give me an email address, I am standing here right now. I would take photos. I said, I have a newspaper in the car, because at that time, McDonald's would give you a free newspaper in the morning with your coffee. Otherwise, I wouldn't bought the newspaper. So we had photographs taken of us holding the newspaper, knowing that we couldn't go back in time with today's newspaper. So we sent that to them, and we subsequently closed on the deal. But I guess they had whiplash going back to both the agent that did the BPO and the listing agent. And I told them both, I said, look, we didn't contact you. We didn't dime you out. We didn't say anything bad about you. Your instructions for the agent remarks section, in our MLSs, we have two sections at the bottom. One is for the public to see, and the other is for the agents only. And in the remarks, it was contact this auction service at something.com, which is how we got involved in it. So I guess to be on the safe side, if you could get on the road, I'd probably at least make sure that the address matches some home that you're doing the BPO on, and that the home is actually there.
Yeah. I've actually heard of people buying on auction.com, and like the city had already condemned and raised the structure, but it had old pictures from who the hell knows when. And they literally closed and showed up to a vacant lot. Yep. with liens against it for the cost of the cleanup, because the city tore the house down and slapped liens against the land, and they bought a liability not knowing it.
Well, we've had a couple of those. And obviously with Detroit being our nearest city.
Oh, you've certainly seen that then.
I mean, our unemployment is probably 25, 30% or higher now in Detroit. And they don't, a lot of that's not covered. But I was approached by a gentleman that owned a commercial strip mall last week because he knew I had a few investors. And he said, hey, look, $500,000, you can have this thing free and clear. All the upgrades, and, the building is relatively new. The facade was nice. The parapet wall was in great condition. And he says, look what you can do it. Well, fine. If you couldn't rent it out, what makes you think that we're any better? Yeah. Nobody's going to come to me and want to rent a space out, nor, any of the investors that I had. Yeah. So even though you might pick up these properties right now, who's going to rent them from you? I mean, even if you pick them up for cash, how long do you want to hold that without generating any revenue?
Yep. And not having any recourse.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the sheriff's sales become back online, along with some of the probate files. Because I think they're going to lag behind for a short time. At least that's what I see locally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I think California is going to have a problem, and I hope is that they ease up on some of their court oversight on probate and just let families make decisions. I would like to see them just grant full authority to every personal rep, and so they can move forward like we do. But I think that'll be, one of the other forced innovations, like in any court process that's just ridiculous and inefficient, I think will evolve through this. It's going to have to. Otherwise, it's going to take years to clear this. So,
well, I think from having done probate and sheriff sales, plus, being a realtor and an investor, I've come across some attorneys that are just horrible. And yet there's others, that are absolutely great to deal with. You take someone that knows nothing and they're charging them 12, 15% of the estate, basically to do a few hours worth of work, which is sad. And it shouldn't be that way.
No industry is immune to it. I mean, you got to figure a lot of these probate attorneys finished in the bottom of their class, but they still finished.
Well, it's like, I think in some way, Chad, it's like some of our city inspectors. The reason they're city inspectors is that they didn't make it in the trades as an electrical contractor, plumbing contractor, HVAC, or whatever. So they go to the city.
Yeah. Yeah, not all attorneys are created equal. That's for damn sure. There's some really good ones. I think Bill, when John Fraker and I did that video, I don't know if you watched that, Bill. I think we talked about that. Some of the things he's seen from his peers.
I think it's very sad. I have 2 probate attorneys that I work with and 1 real estate attorney that I've had for years. And even though I may feel comfortable doing something, I just send it over to an email, go, hey, look, this is what we're going to do, give it your blessing. And for a reasonable charge, I know it's now authored by a law firm, which gives me a very strong comfort level. And he's been able to actually to help people that I brought to him that were being taken advantage by somebody else, which I think is really great on his part.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bill, thank
Pat,
you.
one
Sure, go
last
ahead.
comment, if I could.
Yep.
Someone made a comment the other day with your mastery group. You folks are basically housed between Virginia and Florida to some degree. I think a November meeting of anyone that wanted to come after all the dust settles down in Florida, I think would be wonderful.
You know what, man? I've had so many people ask to have a live event, and we had actually considered doing it on a cruise ship. My partner Tim has experience working with some other in his past life, working with large real estate investor groups. They did cruise, like educational cruises. And that's something we've considered. So yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know how many maybe we should send out an email and see just how many people would want to come to a live event.
I would be glad to volunteer my time to help in any way. Obviously being retired and I have the time to do whatever I want to do.
I think you should host it and I'll watch from the audience. I mean, if you want to,
I'm good with that. If I could put enough knowledge together, I perhaps know, 1 or 2% of a lot of things, which just makes me dangerous, but
Yeah.
I don't know 20% of anything. There is I believe he's also an attorney, but he's definitely a CPA. He now resides in Puerto Rico. His name's John Heyer, and he does a program in Puerto Rico. It's rather expensive, but before anyone signs up, he gives you a whole layout of what the Internal Revenue Code says about your time, your cost of your meals that are deductible, your airline travel, how many hours a day you have to spend in the classroom, how many days you could have before or after the trip and still have it qualify as educational. So it would be a fun adventure, I think. And the cruise ship, once it's fumigated, I think that would be great. And I'm offering whatever assistance I could.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks for bringing that back up. It might be a good way to help the cruise industry. All right, next. So Renee said, what company should we apply for BPOs? All of my leads from the last 2008 aren't available. I don't know. If anyone is currently doing BPOs, I haven't really been looking at that opportunity either. Who would know, Renee, is Tim and Julie Harris with Harris Coaching. They train a lot of their agents. They're and I haven't heard Tim talk about this. He was actually on our call Friday as briefly as a guest. But they train their agents to do BPOs in times like this, so they have the opportunity to build relationships with the asset managers. And okay, you know them. Good. So check them out. If anybody else, Bud says Roger does a lot of BPOs. Let me see if he's on here. Thanks, Bud. Roger is not here today. Renee, if you find Roger Lisi, and it's spelled with a D, I believe, Rodger, Lisi, Lecy. If you can find him in our Facebook group, Bud Thompson said that he does a lot of those. Gisela, I'm going to come to you and we'll talk apartments for a bit. I don't see you anymore. I don't know why Zoom, you can't just click on the person who asked the question, click on their name, and it would unmute them. Get with it, Zoom. I knew that forced innovation. Gisela, I don't know if you're still here. I cannot find you in our alphabetical list about your apartment question. Mary Jane, let's see where you are. Hey, Mary Jane, you are allowed to talk if you'd like to. You had a question about DNC.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
I'm great. And really, I called a couple weeks ago because a good majority of the people on my leads list have um, no phone number, or they have ones that are no longer in service, and very few have an email where I can reach them. I'm not ready to throw in the towel or anything. I just want to know if you have any good suggestions as to more ways to contact them via mail, and maybe even some suggestions that put that contact, I guess, a helpful spin during our present coronavirus situation.
Yep. I'll say this. We have had, I don't know, we're probably approaching 6 or 7 million outbound prospecting calls since we started to personal representatives. And I know of one DNC complaint, and it was an attorney in New York City who called one of our subscribers and said, hey, don't do that. Like, they didn't even give them a written complaint. So most people kind of look at their own personal risk of calling the DNCs and end up calling them anyways. We do the DNC validation to protect our own assets because we're in a call center, so we're looked at differently. But so anyways, take that for you decide what your stance is on it. Most of our subscribers call all the personal reps because they operate off the understanding that they are a public representative, at least for the period of time that the notice to creditors is open. So, and the families, they may say, don't call me again, but that nobody really takes action against them.
Okay.
So that's it.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking last week that you had said that not to do that because there were attorneys out there waiting for any work, and going after violators of that might be one of their
avenues. And on DNC, I'm way less worried about DNC. What I'm worried about is TCPA. And Renee, you mentioned Navy Federal Credit Union earlier. They got blasted for several, I think it was was it 150 million? They had to pay in a settlement. But what I said was going to happen is happening. Attorneys are looking for whatever settlement they can shake out of people that they can get. So you do have some liability with DNC, but TCPA is when you're using technology to drop to robocalls, ringless voicemail, text messaging, anything that's mass messaging, mass messenger. Those are the things where you really build a bunch of liability really quickly. If you have a DNC complaint, then chances are you hand dialed that and that person, and if you didn't call them more than once, you're not really going to have any liability. Those attorneys are going after the things that they can blow into a big class action really quickly, and then shake you down right now for revenue and keep you out of a courtroom. That's what I was cautioning you against was text marketing, ringless voicemail, and robo dialing. But as far as individual hand dialing, if you hit a DNC, your biggest risk is they say, don't call me, or how did you get this number?
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. All right. Giselle, let me see if you're back, if I can find you. Lots of familiar names here. Thank you guys for hanging out. But not Gisella. Yeah. All right. So Michael says he was on a cruise with my partner, Tim Yandel, way back when. All right, guys. Well, it looks like we've exhausted the questions, at least for now. Kat, what are you seeing on Facebook over there? Are you still awake?
Yeah, I think we're caught up with everything on Facebook.
Well, give us some good news. What's your good news for the week, Kat?
Well, my good news from earlier was, as industries shift and some people are losing their jobs, some companies are going out of business, there's going to be other companies that come out ahead, which means people that are aggressively looking for new jobs are going to need to relocate. I think most participants on our call are probably in residential real estate, and I think that's going to be good news for a lot of people. I think we will see a pretty high transaction volume once people start moving around and looking for new jobs.
Yeah. What concerns you the most about the housing market?
Just how fear can feed itself. So people are acting off instinct and their own perceptions or what they're hearing, and it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we want to be pessimistic, and sure, there's always things to be concerned about, if we're too pessimistic, we will lead ourselves into a doomsday scenario. If we choose to kind of look for the opportunity and find it and extract that, then we'll kind of build a better future just on our own.
Yeah. What's the old saying is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And it's kind of the same thing. Like if we just go into this just expecting everything to go to hell, then that's probably the result we'll get, right?
Yeah, I don't want that. I think Florida's hot enough for me.
All right. Anything else you want to share with the group, Kat? Any about the rest of the week? Anything you're doing? Anything they should know?
This is a reminder to everybody. Our role play call is this Wednesday on the 8th, since we moved in last week. We're going to do our regular Thursday call, and we'll also be back here with Shift Happens Wednesday and Friday. I'm sorry if I bombard you guys with a lot of updates in the group and through email, but everything will be fully recapped, and you can watch all of the content at any time. So if you aren't in that group, that's All the Leads Mastermind on Facebook. I also definitely recommend subscribing to the channel on YouTube. I think YouTube is a bit easier to listen to. You don't have to take up your whole phone space with YouTube. You can just kind of play the content in the background and keep going. So make sure you go to the All the Leads YouTube channel as well.
All right. Well, guys, we're going to call it a day. So just to recap, keep your head up, keep finding the positive, think outside of the box, keep your market moving forward. And a lot of it's dependent on us professionals moving the ball down the field. Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Well, let me back up. Wednesday at noon Eastern, we will have Shift Happens, and we'll most likely go through the buyer side of some of the ideas we hinted about today, but we'll look at how to deal with buyers in escrow, buyers in pipeline, and buyer prospecting. And then we'll do sellers on Friday. Excuse me, same thing. Escrow, pipeline, prospecting. And I'm looking at that from both a realtor standpoint and an investor standpoint. So just some of the best ideas I've come up with or have borrowed, or whatever comes out of it. But how to keep things moving forward and keep the ball moving down the field. At 2 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, we have the monthly role play call that got punted because we had mastery last week. At 1 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, we have the weekly mastermind call. And then Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we'll have the Shift Happens. So that's our calendar for the week. Thank you guys so much for being here and for participating. Hopefully you got some inspiration here. It wasn't too negative. I'm glad to see you guys are all in good spirits, and I will see you on Wednesday, whichever day that is, right?